2, 3, 4. All right, welcome to the local pickup. Today we've got some really cool Martin guitars. Chris, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Chris Martin.
Chris Martin from Coldplay's.
How are you doing?
Pretty awesome.
Good. So
me and Gwyneth Paltrow split up. Been bummed about
that's
it.
That's what I heard. Are you now with Pete Davidson?
Yeah, I can't. It's unavoidable.
That's the best I can do for like a joke that's like pop culture. Like
Pete Davidson is someone. I think he played the Incredible Hulk in the 1970s.
He did. He was Lou Ferrigno's counterpart.
He was a stunt.
Okay, so this is a Martin D-28, a 1982 Martin D-28. That is a 1996 Martin, let's see, it's a D-16T.
D-16T from 1986.
From 1996.
1996.
This is 82.
96. This guitar enjoys the sitcom Friends.
You'll never guess what the T stands for. I'm not going to tell you right now. Spoiler.
Trebuchet.
How did you get that? No, okay, so first what I want to do is tell you about this guitar.
Using only notes.
That was, it's expressive. So, there's a lot of bass in this guitar.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about the Martin D-28, the bass, how the Martin's famous. For that. Well, it's a big part of its story, right? So Martin obviously was making guitars, in the 1880s, 1860s. I guess they started maybe in the 40s, so they were going for a long time before.
1830s. No,
we can keep going.
20s.
Yeah. Anyway,
sorry.
Scratch all those dates. Let me try that again. Okay, so Martin's been making guitars for a long time, back in the 1800s, right? Mm. And they came to the United States and were making guitars briefly in the New York area, and then moved to Pennsylvania, where they still are.
Where the action is.
Exactly.
Could blow past old New York City. Give me that Pennsylvania life.
Exactly. So, as we've talked about before, so the banjo was the primary folk instrument, and then guitars got steel strings, and then they became louder. Well, Martin was a big part of making that happen. They invented like the X-bracing technique that allowed the strength of the steel, to be able to hold the steel strings and all that stuff. So they were right there, number one, when that was happening. Gibson was in there with them as far as the other big maker in the United States. And they introduced in 1931, which would have been, that's like right as the Depression's getting going, they introduced the dreadnought size. And it didn't really take off at first, but this shape and look of a guitar is like the iconic look of an acoustic guitar. Like, if you had people close their eyes and draw an acoustic guitar, it would look like this, And it's kind of like how the Strat is that for an electric guitar. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like the symbol of guitar.
Yeah.
And this look and this natural wood and this shape is the same thing for acoustic guitars, but they invented it because it was a bassier instrument that could accompany vocals and accompany a banjo and a fiddle and all those more trebly instruments. And so
there's a timelessness to the shape that obviously, I mean, it's like if you look at, what shoes looked like when they first designed this guitar versus what guitars look like, which is exactly the same.
Right, right, yeah.
It's a practical thing.
Yeah, and this dreadnought style is the dominant kind of what an acoustic guitar looks like. And it didn't exist before Martin designed it and invented it. And they invented the name dreadnought because they named it after a battleship, like the World War I battleships or whatever. But
Or Imperial Star Destroyers is actually, I think, what they named it.
That's what they named it after, yeah.
Not to actually, but I think it was named after the Star Wars thing.
That was too far away.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
So people didn't jump on it at first because it seemed big, bulky, too big, it was like a different instrument, basically. And they actually started getting success because they started advertising them as bass guitars, which sounds weird.
What?
But it was like...
That's not a bass guitar, come on.
I mean, come on.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was like... Go ahead.
So to be clear, so then they really were like... It was almost like a different, like a baritone guitar. It was almost marketed, or the idea was this is a bass guitar.
Yeah.
But it was the same notes as a parlor guitar, right?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a different tuning.
It was a guitar, yeah.
Wow. So it's just
guitar.
like, even though sonically it's different, it's like this is a bass guitar. Interesting.
And it was a marketing thing to get people to understand it and buy it, but it was a design thing too. When they built it, they wanted it to be, I mean, because those smaller body guitars are mid-range.
Yeah.
Sound, and it wanted it to give it a bassier.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, the culturally things were different. Guitar culture was different enough at the time that with the same exact tuning as a regular guitar, you could say, well, this is a bass guitar.
Exactly.
It's interesting.
Exactly. And it all comes from the big, the design of the body, how big it is and how it's designed. It's like the bassiest possible way to design a guitar body, And so anyway,
can we get the "They're All About That Bass" joke done?
On,
can
let's just get over that. Yeah.
Hit that like button.
So by 35, 36, the 40s, it became so popular, it got adopted by the country crowd, bluegrass crowd. I mean, it just became the dominant guitar, hands down across the board. And it was so popular that in the 50s, it took 2 years to get one because Martin couldn't make them fast enough. But it just became like, and then everybody's growing up. At that point, when Dad or Uncle Billy has a guitar in the house, it's going to look like this.
Yeah.
And that's what they think guitars look like, because it's going to be a Martin. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so that's kind of, they like once again revolutionized guitar making when they came out with the Dreadnought. So it's just a standard, the classic, called the D-28. And it's solid Sitka, mahogany, rosewood.
Yeah, I'd say even like in electric guitars, it's comparative to like a Strat, but in terms of acoustic guitars, it really is even more of a ubiquitous thing. Like, I mean, it's like D-28 is a term that gets thrown around.
Oh yeah, especially Dreadnought. People call that the shape.
Well, yeah, it's like a D-28. We're talking about the guy's got whatever kind of D-28 looking guitar or whatever. It's just like It's funny how much D-28 is just shorthand for acoustic guitar, kind of standard, like traditional, no cutaway. That's what a good acoustic guitar is.
Yeah, and they, it's cool. They invented that and then struggled marketing it, and they got it out there, and now it's just the standard. But it's standard for a reason. I mean, so many people choose to play it, and it has a sound people recognize. It's got that bassier, Yeah, so it's not only got that bassy, deep sound that is good for, rhythm and backup, but it's got a real sweet sound to it, too. I mean, definitely, it's not like it needs to be a background instrument by any stretch.
Yeah.
All around, well-rounded instrument, man.
Yeah, and it's got so much punch in general that when you finger pick it, it still really like cuts through.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look at that guitar. Let's listen to it for a second. Very nice. Plays great, doesn't it?
Yeah, it plays like butter. It definitely is for 96, and not that that's ancient, but it feels and looks like a brand new guitar, and it plays like it is finely made.
Yeah, it's really great, man. It's got nice low action, great neck. I mean, the sound's great. Everything about it's nice. And when they released that guitar in the 90s, they were trying to get a more affordable guitar, and they made it out of all solid wood. You got a solid top, solid back and sides. It's a Sitka top, and it's rosewood bridge, and I mean it's a really nice instrument, you know. And the T is a D-16T.
D-16T.
The T is for technology, and it's because they were experimenting with the technology they were using to do the neck joint.
There's a little robot in here.
Yeah, exactly. And so they tried it for a little while, and then they just moved away from it and discontinued them.
So what the technology? What is the? Why did they use that word?
So they were using a different type of joint versus the dovetail. It was like a tenon type of joint, and apparently they had like come up with a new way to do that would make it advantageous.
But there was maybe a little bit of 90s technology is a hot term.
They were looking, how do we slap technology on it? We'll make it about the neck joint.
Right. Yeah. It's like it's not like some kind of, not that this would be a positive word, but it's not like there's sort of built-in electronics that are different or anything.
No,
it's just,
no robots, no. Yeah. So the word technology is comically thrown on there for a 90s thing.
Yeah, like we use technology.
Yeah.
We technologied it.
But for a few years there, they ran them, and they had a lower, retail price than like a D-28. So now when you go back and get one, you can save a lot of money getting one of these versus getting a D-28 from the 90s. Some people are just going to want the D-28 just because it's a D-28. But those guitars are nice, man. It sounds great, plays great. It's got a different finish, so it makes it feel very different.
Yeah, it's again, for 96, it feels so modern. Like I'm looking at that one, and it's got the sort of cream
the binding.
Yeah. There's something about the simplicity of this just subtle tortoise kind of thing that's on the top piece. It's not facing front.
Yeah.
They just seem simpler and sleeker.
And some of the stuff that they were able to, cut down on cost with some of that stuff too, just making it plainer in areas where they could find a place to make it plainer. And again, trying to lower the retail point without going to a laminate wood. Because, the sound is dominated by the wood, and so to have nice, solid woods makes it a high-end guitar,
Yeah.
They just tried to cut back where they could on price and called it technology.
Yeah, I don't think that I would ever guess that this was a guitar attempting to be cheaper.
No, it's like really nice, and they're expensive. I'm just saying compared to D-28.
Right, but even comparatively, I just wouldn't even guess that this was where they were headed. For
Absolutely,
this guitar at all.
yeah, absolutely. And again, to stick with solid woods and the rosewood bridge and the ebony pins, and I mean it's still it's a really nice guitar, and it plays absolutely fantastic. So you got the D-28, which has set the standard of acoustic guitars throughout the history of acoustic guitars. And then you have a kind of a version of that where they tried to, experiment with some changes in the 90s. Either way, they're both Martin, solid wood, awesome guitars.
D-16?
It's D-16T.
D-16T.
Yeah. I have no idea why the 16. But the D stands for Dreadnought, just like with the Martin. And then I don't know why 16 versus 28, but
who knows?
Yeah.
It's a secret. It's a conspiracy. Figure it out on the boards.
There was a D-18. The original one was a D-1 that they made for some other company, like back in the early 30s. It was the first Dreadnought they ever put out. And then when Martin started making it with their own brand on it, they only did that for a couple years. They changed it to D-18, and then it eventually became D-28. But I don't know exactly why they changed the number and everything.
Let's do 16 now, they said.
I mean, come on.
Non-linear.
It's more technologically.
16 is the most technical number there is.
It is, technically speaking, of course.
Because 1 plus 6 is 7, which is more than 6, which is how math works.
Which is technology.
And there's math inside of every computer you ever saw. I promise you. Well, let me tell you a story about technology. It's in my guitar and the birds and the bees. And this guitar is technology for you and me. All across the land, technology.
I was like a chord behind you the whole time.
I know, I didn't know what I was doing.
Cool. So, Martin, good job. Keep it up.
Good job,
man.
Martin. You guys did good.
One day you'll
You
get
all.
discovered.
Yeah, keep at it. Keep on putting the guitars together and people will find you.
People will. You're going to be rewarded one day. I mean, you're doing a good job. Stay in the light, brother.
Hang in there, Martin. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise.
All right, I guess we'll see you next time on The Local Pickup.